Hello, my name is Caitlin Persky. I'm doing this video for Professor Alexander's Children's Literature class at California Baptist University. For my project, I chose to analyze 5 books on the Civil Rights Movement. The 5 books I chose were If You Lived When There Was Slavery in America by Ann Kama, my second book, Henry's Freedom Box by Ellen Levine and Kader Nelson, my third book, A Nation's Hope by Matt de la Pena, my fourth book, I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr., and my fifth book was What Was Your Dream, Dr. King, and Other Questions About Martin Luther King Jr. by Mary Key Carson. I chose these books because I felt that the Civil Rights Movement was one of the most important times in history. All of these books have strengths and weaknesses, but they are great books to read to children so that they can better understand this time in our history. These books are made for children under the ages of 8. For my first book, If You Lived When There Was Slavery in America by Ann Kama, which is a series, this book tells you about the hard life that slaves faced and how slaves found ways to overcome some of the hardships. It tells how cruel the system of slavery was and how it began and how it ended. Some of the questions it includes in the book are, where did slaves come from? Where did slaves live in America? What were their houses like? What kind of work did they do? One strength of this book is how it gives many different questions for children that they may ask and answers to them. One of its weaknesses is that it may be a little hard for children to relate to. My second book, Henry's Freedom Box, which is a true story about a man from the Underground Railroad. This book is by Ellen Levine and Kader Nelson. This book also won a Caldecott Honor. This book is about a boy named Henry who had a dream of a world where his life belonged to him. But when his family is sold, he risks everything for what he knows is right. With the strengths and convictions of the best kind of hero, Henry takes a journey in a wooden crate and mails himself to freedom. One of the strengths in this book is the imagery by Kader Nelson. Each character she paints makes this book easier to visualize for children. A weakness from this book would have to be that it may be a little more on the graphic side for some of the images. My third book, A Nation's Hope, is a story of a boxing legend, Joe Louis. This book is by Matt de la Pena. This book was about an African-American boxer, Joe Louis. On the eve of World War II, fought German Max Schmeling in a match that had more at stake than just the world's heavyweight a little. This book shows a historic fight that Americans came together to celebrate our nation's founding ideas. Back then, blacks didn't win decisions against whites. Joe had to let his fists be the referees. His first fight, he knocked his opponent clear out of the ring, but instead of the ref holding up his hand, he went and helped his opponent up. That's just the kind of man Joe was. A weakness in this book would have to be that it's harder to relate for children, but a strength would that it shows that no matter what color or race you are, you can do anything you set your mind to. The fourth book, I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. This book basically is a children's version of Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream, that by 4 little children will have one day the nations where they will not be judged or by the color of their skin or the content of their character. 50 years ago, on August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther stood before the nation and gave this powerful speech and memorable speech in our history. His call for freedom and equality of all people, no matter what the color of their skin, would echo in the heart and mind of every American both young and old, for generations to come. From every mountain let freedom ring. A strength in this simplified book for children is so that they may be able to understand the speech he made. A weakness would be that doesn't give too many visuals for children to see why equality is so important. In my last book, What Was Your Dream, Dr. King? And Other Questions from Martin Luther King Jr. by Mary Key Carson. This is also another question book. What kind of doctor was Martin Luther King Jr.? How did he convince America that segregation was wrong? Has Dr. King's dream come true? This book is another book full of questions, but the same just about Martin Luther King and the questions children may ask about him. Some strengths of this book are how it talks about how Martin Luther King's speech is still moving today and how we now have a black president. One of his weaknesses, though, would be that there is very little visuals for children to be able to see. And that's all the books that I read. Thank you.